All right then. Welcome to week 12's collaborate session. Now, hopefully this will go better than the other sections session because nobody in the other section showed up. So it's automatically going better because there's so many of you here. So appreciate you guys taking time out of your afternoon. Let's go ahead and get into this. The agenda for today is we're going to take a close look at, or just a general overview of the slides from this week's lecture. We're going to do a brief brief session of questions, and then we're going to take a look at the most recent 3 discussion board topics. Okay, so let's go into the slides. All right, so this week what we're talking about is Rogerian argument. Okay. Now, many times proposal argument uses similar strategies to a classical argument in that you're attempting to appeal to your audience on a logical level. So we talked about this last week. Oftentimes, a practical proposal will work with concrete arguments, appealing to a sense of logic, whereas a policy proposal works with emotional arguments and appeals to pathos more than logos. There's some instances where a proposal argument needs to straddle the line between debating sides in order to keep both sides happy and feeling respected. That's where we get into what's called Rogersian argument. All right, so you might be asking, what is Rogerian argument? You explain in the lecture, but just to reiterate, Rogerian argument is simply an argument which reaches more toward finding common ground between sides than it does for one side being more right than the other. Okay, it is a style of argument that was developed by Carl Rogers, who is a noted psychologist. He developed it in the 1970s. Okay, it's based in the psychology of the time, where it trended toward concentrating on validation of feelings rather than fixing what's wrong with a person's way of thinking. As I mentioned in the video, old school psychology, what we think of as like Freudian psychology, focus more on this is what's wrong with you and here's why. You're on your own fixing it, but here's why you feel this way. And most times it all, especially with Freudian psychology, it usually involves one way or another got back to you want to have sex with your parents. I don't know, no idea why. Freud was just weird like that. Rogerian argument relates to a psychological theory called transactional analysis, or TA, which focuses on how interactions make individuals feel and acknowledging and validating those feelings. You may recall some interesting pictures around this time of the lecture in the video, because we're dealing with the idea of warm fuzzies and cold pricklies. They come from transactional analysis. Okay, those are simple, easy to remember terms for these interactions. Okay, for these types of validations. Yagelski acknowledges this origin by mentioning the purpose of Rogerian argument as a means to negotiate differences and achieve social cooperation. Okay. So what makes Rogerian argument so different? Well, here's the basics of it. Primary thing to remember about Rogerian argument is that the primary goal is finding common ground between typically vastly separate sides. The main way it achieves this is by acknowledging the opposing viewpoint non-judgmentally, as opposed to attempting to validate the opposition as classical arguments tend to want to do. Okay, so primarily speaking, when you're looking at Rogerian arguments, it's looking for common ground. Okay, it wants to find some place where both sides can agree and then work from there to find a way to solve the problem. So Rogerian argument is organized into 6 primary sections, starting with an introduction which presents the problem to be resolved and offers hope for a positive outcome. Then goes to the summary of opposing views, stated as accurately and neutrally as possible. There's no judgment involved here. It's basically, this is what the opponent wants to accomplish. Then you have a statement of understanding, where you acknowledge the validity of the opposing viewpoint. Find common ground between your side and the opponent. You do not necessarily have to condone them to validate them. You basically just have to acknowledge, okay, this is your point of view. I respect that. Then the statement of position, where you make your side known. Okay, we do not get into your position until we fully establish what the opposition's position is. Okay. Then we have the statement of context. The main argument made in the Rogerian argument tends to be that the opposition has a valid argument, but it is not applicable to the current context. Okay, Rogerian argument is all about context. It's all about yeah, we have legitimate solutions. However, the context is going to dictate which one is right. And right now, I feel the context is right for my solution as opposed to yours. It's nothing wrong with your solutions, just the context is wrong for it. Okay? By stating the context, you're establishing why your position is more appropriate for the circumstances. And then last, a statement of benefits. So you appeal to the self-interest of the opposition. State what's in it for them if your position is adopted and how they will also benefit from your side of the argument. Okay, so basically you're going to try to talk over with the opponent what's going to benefit them if your side is successful. Okay, how are they going to reap benefits from it as opposed to just being cast to the wayside? To give you an example of a Rogerian argument, I did supply you with this link. Safety and structure first, the debate about homeschooling. Well, the problem being that the link itself in the slideshow is dead. But if you run a Google search for safety and structure first, it gets you to this essay in PDF form. Okay. So I actually read you this essay in the lecture video. This is your questions to the professor activity for this week. Is taking a look at this this essay and answering these questions about it. Okay. So just taking a quick look at it right now. We get to my discussion board, just so I can look at it. Looks like there's been one response thus far to the Charles St. Martin essay. Okay, so I would recommend that you take a look at it so that you can see exactly what goes into Rogerian argument. What kind of things can be achieved by it, okay? How an actual one that's written in the wild looks, so to speak, okay? So moving on from there, the other half of the class, or excuse me, we're still going with Rogerian argument, applying it to proposals. A major part of the proposal argument is attempting to reach common ground with multiple different sides of an issue. So this is a great reason to employ elements of Rogerian argument to a proposal. Okay, you want to appeal to the opposing side by validating their argument and their belief in their argument. This is something you're supposed to be doing already with the proposal, but this format actually implicitly wants you to do that. It wants you to butter up your opponent so that you can let them know, I'm not against you, I'm with you. I just have a slightly different viewpoint, but I think if you take a look at my viewpoint and compare it, I think you'll find that it'll be equally just as beneficial for you as it is for me. Okay? Then you place the full argument in context and not validate the opposition so much as to make your own side more valid in the circumstances. Again, proposals primarily are about how are we going to solve this problem. The problem itself is the context. And all the circumstances surrounding that problem are creating the context. So within that context, your solution has to look like the right one. Even though you're acknowledging the opposition has a legitimate viewpoint, it's not right for that particular circumstance. Emphasize that there are common goals and beliefs that are in play. Make it crystal clear that those common goals are why your proposal is being forth in your argument. Your goal is not to be a direct opposition to the opponent. Your goal is to solve the problem just like their goal is to solve the problem. Okay? That's the main point of a Rogerian argument. We have a shared purpose. We're coming about it from different paths, but we have the same purpose in mind. Okay? Remember that this form of argument is designed to help foster communication, especially in sides of a dispute where there is a large difference of opinion. Okay? Now, as mentioned, there's a same-sex marriage debate that Yagelski says is perfect for Rogerian argument because both sides have a common goal. In this case, it is families, keeping families together. Now, they have different ways of approaching that goal, but both sides of the same-sex marriage debate have that same goal, and that is creating stable families, which you can't do if one entire population of people aren't allowed to even form families. Okay, so that goes for Rogerian argument. Okay, the second half of the class this week was final exam question overview. Okay, but one thing I wanted to share with you is the proctor instructions, which have been posted. Okay. The final exam packet has 4 potential questions that you should prepare for. Of these questions, 2 of them are appearing on the final exam. So you are only going to see 2 on the exam itself. And of those 2, you only have to answer 1. Okay? So you're provided the questions in advance to help you study and practice your writing. Use your journal to help practice your writing. Okay? The best way to do this is to have your exam packet printed out, which you should have already, so that you can use it in the exam period. Choose one of the questions and do everything you need to do to write a full essay to answer that question within the time limit you have, which is going to be 1 hour and 50 minutes. Okay, that is the entire time you have to draft your response, revise it, and proofread your response. Okay. Now, again, I have posted the proctor instructions. You'll need to get this from the final exam tab on eCampus and give it to your proctor. Okay. They're going to act as a timekeeper and verify you're taking the exam without outside assistance. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you guys the proctor instruction sheet. All right. You may remember when I first got when we first started with the final exam stuff, I told you because we're doing this remotely, you have to secure a proctor from your household. The definition of this is going to be any responsible adult that you know in the household who you trust to watch you and make sure you don't cheat. Okay? So here are the exam instructions that the proctors have. Okay? Now, first off, the exam must be taken anytime between December 7th and December 10th. Okay? Grades are required to be posted on the last Friday of the semester, which is the 11th. As such, I want to have as much leeway as possible for the exams to be graded. Okay? So, now we're getting into what you need to know about this exam. So, it has to be done between the 7th and the 10th. Second, the student is allowed to have a printed copy of the exam study packet when they take the exam. Any notes added to the packet by the student are also acceptable for use. What you are not allowed to do is do any other external online research during the exam period. So there's going to be no web surfing while you're taking the exam. Okay, if you need to find something from, say, from the Impact Nottingham materials, take notes on it and put them in the packet. You're not going to be allowed to browse to those pages during the exam. Okay? Student will need to sign into eCampus and follow the link to the final exam. It's on the left-hand menu. The link will include a PowerPoint presentation and a link to the actual exam. Okay? Student is to click on the PowerPoint link and read the contents. This will include the exam password and the 2 questions. Okay? The student needs to choose 1 question and write an essay of a minimum of 5 paragraphs to respond to the question. You need to write 5 paragraphs. And 1 introduction, at least 3 body paragraphs, and 1 conclusion paragraph. Okay? You only need to choose 1 question. Let me repeat that. Okay? You only need to choose 1 of the 2 questions that's presented to you. Okay? Some people in the past have thought that they needed to integrate both questions into 1 essay. I don't want that. Okay? Each question is designed so that it can lead to being basically a writing prompt for its own essay. Okay? So 1 question per essay, basically. There will need to be a timer set for 1 hour and 50 minutes unless the student has accommodation allowances for extra time. The student will only have that much time to complete their essay. Okay? So you will be on the clock here. When the student has finished or time has expired, do not allow the student to submit their response until you have entered your name at the bottom of the text entry. So I know who is acting as the proctor for you. Okay, just to confirm that you have somebody else in the room with you. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the slideshow. And somebody's got a question. Yeah, Vanessa, go ahead.
You cut off. Sorry.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Your mic cut off. What do we have to write at the bottom?
The very bottom of the exam entry box, you need to have your proctor has to enter their name. All right, Ian, I see you. What's your question?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, go ahead, Ian. All right, Ian, I don't know if you're talking or not, but I'm not picking up anything on your mic. So I'll tell you what, we'll go through these exam question overview, and then we'll try to do some more questions afterward. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at the 4 questions. So these are the 4 questions that you guys received. Question number 1. Among the reasonings that have been presented for considering children's programming to be controversial, issues of inclusion of marginalized populations tends to arise commonly throughout time, whether it be Southern objections to Sesame Street's diverse neighborhood or modern issues that arise around LGBTQIA plus characters. What argument can be made for either side of the controversy? That is, what arguments are there for the inclusion of these characters, and what arguments are there for their exclusion? What support does either side have for their argument, and how sufficient is it? Okay. So, for the purposes of this question, where you want to look in the packet is going to be reading through the Sesame Street article from the New Yorker and the materials from Impact Nottingham for perspectives on reasons presented for the disputes, in addition to the Extra and Guardian articles. And if you recall, last week in this session, in the Collaborate session, we took a look at the 1 million moms. Okay. Okay, Ian, all right. So can you, if you could find someone from outside your household if you are able to get them to come and act as your proctor, okay? You have somebody to act as a proctor for you, okay? All right, so we did look at 1 million moms last week and showed you how they've been complaining about stuff, and they complain about LGBTQ specifically, okay? And how they've tried to organize boycotts and protests and that sort of thing. Mainstream most people don't really take them too seriously, but they're loud enough of a nuisance that they get attention. Basically, what it comes down to. Okay, so just think about how you would answer that question based on the materials you got presented in the packet. All right, moving to question number 2. Consider the looper list of offensive episodes. Choose any of the episodes on the list and argue for its reintegration into the show in question. Why is the series harmed by its exclusion? What should be done to address the issues which banned the episode in the first place to allow it to be acceptable for broadcast? Okay. Your best bet here is read through the looper article and watch its accompanying video, which is linked in the packet for clips from the offending episodes. This is a question that's asking for your personal opinion. So just come up with a justification for your argument as best you can based on the evidence that you're presented with. Okay. Now, I will say one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that one of the items on that list is an entire series and not a single episode, so that one's probably not usable. Rest of them, though, are individual episodes, and I'll give you a hint here. At least 2, maybe 3 of them have their continuity harmed by having those episodes changed or removed. Okay? Then we get question number 3. Place yourself in the role of a parent of an 8-year-old child of either gender. Your child has been watching Steven Universe off and on, depending on the broadcast schedule, but the night you decide to watch the show is the night the episode Reunited airs, depicting a lesbian wedding. Argue for or against your child continuing to watch the show. For what reasons are you making the decision for your child? How much does the background of the series or other episodes of it play into your decision? One thing I think I need to do here is clarify this question. Okay. Now, one thing I would note here is that when it was in its original run, Steven Universe had a very inconsistent broadcast schedule. After a while, they gave up trying to do a regular schedule for it and just started doing blocks of it with huge gaps of like months at a time between those blocks, which came to be known as Steven bombs. Okay. Reunited was one episode of a major Steven bomb near the end of the series. Okay. And the context of this question is implied that your kid has been watching the show, but you have not, and you don't watch it until the night that Reunited airs. Okay, so this is mainly going to be about how you're going to react to watching Reunited cold without any of the previous episodes that your kid has been watching. Okay, so you have to consider how you're going to react. Okay. To get your perspective, I gave you the video of the Ruby and Sapphire relationship to try to show you how realistic their relationship has been. I also gave you the interview with Rebecca Sugar, where she talks about her concepts in the show and why she included some of the things, some of her goals for a show, that sort of thing. Okay. I also wanted to note for you that there is a personal element for me to this role-playing question because you may recall at the beginning of the semester, I mentioned that my daughter is 8 years old. I crafted this question because this is exactly what she started doing shortly after my birthday in September. She and my wife threw me a Steven Universe themed birthday party, complete with stickers and decorations and cake that they couldn't get. They couldn't get a Steven Universe pattern cake, so they got one that looked like a star field, which was close enough. But they gave me a bunch of gifts, including box sets of the first 2 seasons of the show. And my daughter has watched those more than I have. Okay, she picked up the show, she started watching it. I personally have no problem with her watching it. This is just my opinion anyway. Because of the themes that the show has, it's got extremely positive themes. I'm also okay with her exposure to what's usually considered controversial about, which is the same-sex relationships, because, that's the way the world works. There's some people out there that do that. Okay? I don't personally have a problem with that. Matter of fact, yesterday she actually discovered another show that by coincidence happens to be mentioned in this packet. Last night she started watching The Owl House. So you may recall that there's a controversy regarding a recent episode of The Owl House that revealed that the lead character is bisexual. Okay, so she started watching that, and I got no problem with it, especially because I've seen a few episodes of it now, and it's really kind of cute and kind of similar, kind of like Steven Universe meets Harry Potter sort of way. Okay, so it's going to be up to you how you react to it, how you as a parent would react to it. If you're not currently a parent, it's going to require a little bit more mental gymnastics here. If you are a parent, if your child is the right age or maybe hasn't reached that age yet, you can try to speculate how you would feel. Okay? Then we get to the 4th question. It's been written about some of the shows with LGBTQIA plus themes that their conflict resolution practices demonstrated in them are decidedly queer because they don't tend to rely on violence or having a winner than in straighter shows. For example, Steven Universe does a lot of stories with nonviolent conflict resolution through empathy and communication, while She-Ra and the Princesses of Power's final climax had the entire universe saved by an admission of love from Catra to Adora. Argue for or against similar conflict resolution techniques becoming a standard of children's television. How does this approach contrast with other popular shows currently on the air or in the past? Would this approach create more or less controversial episodes that could be banned? Okay, so this concept comes directly from the Extra article. Okay, to a certain extent, it also comes from the articles from Impact Nottingham. Okay, they talk about this idea as well. And I gave you 2 specific scenes from the 2 of the shows that are screen shy here. One of them is Steven Universe Future, the Monster Steven versus the Crystal Gems. And the other one is the final climax of She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, the scene that I just talked about in this question. Okay? So, use all those resources and come together, bring them together and try to come up with a response to this question. Do you feel like this should be a standard for children's television or not? Okay. Do you want them to have more conflict resolution that's peaceful like this? Or would you rather have the old standard where there's a winner and there's a loser, there's good feelings and bad feelings and so on and so forth? Okay. All right. So go ahead and take some questions now, about 10 minutes worth, and then we'll take a look at the discussion topics from the last 3 weeks. Okay, Saddam, I see you there. What's your question?
Yeah, my question is that this is all the questions that we are going to work in our final exam.
You're not going to work them all in. I gave them to you in advance so that you could practice writing responses to each one. Okay. Now, when you get to the exam day, they're only going to be asked 2 of them, and you only get to pick 1.
Okay.
Okay. So, of the 2 that I select for you, you need to pick the one that you feel like you can answer than the other.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Sebastian, you have a question?
Yeah, so the question, this 4 question is not going to be similar to the one you put in. So you taken out of the 4 questions, you taken 2 of them and then put them to the exam, or is it completely different questions?
I'm going to pull directly from this list.
Okay, yeah. That's
okay.
it. All right, thank you.
However they're worded on the list, if they show up on the exam, they're going to be worded that exact same way. So there's going to be no trickery involved here. Okay? Okay, Saddam, what's your question?
Yeah, my question is that is this the same question in the 2 questions that you are going to post in the final exam that we are going to have it?
Yes.
Yeah,
like the questions I'm going to put on the final exam are going to be drawn from this list of 4.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got it right now.
All right, no problem. Okay, Vanessa, I see you there. What's your question?
It's not about the final exam, but the group project.
Okay.
My team and I were still a little confused about the evaluating part. Could you explain that a little?
Okay, so the evaluation that you're going to put into your annotation, that is directly related to how you're approaching it, you individually, not as a team. Okay, it's based on the research question you've come up with for your proposal. You need to evaluate whether that's the sources that you have for each one. You have to evaluate whether it's going to be useful for your purposes or not. Okay. And that's part of what you have to put into the annotation is this. I can use this source because blank, or this source is not useful to me because blank. Okay. That's in addition to the summary that you're going to provide for each source on that list. Okay. Now, theoretically, here, at least 2 sources on your annotated bibliography should be useful to you because you're the one who's bringing them based on your perspective. The rest of them are coming from your teammates. They don't necessarily know what your research question is, so they may be providing, they're going to be sources that are useful to them, but may not necessarily be useful to you. So that's why you need to evaluate them.
Okay. Also was wondering, do we all turn in our separate papers or do we turn it in as a whole?
You have to turn them in. You each have to turn in as a bibliography. It's your own bibliography. The only thing that's shared by the group is the list of sources. Okay, but everybody's going to have their own annotated bibliography with their own set of the list, with their own listing of the sources and their own annotations.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Ian, that's perfectly okay. That's why we're doing the evaluation part of this exercise. All right. You're evaluating all of the sources, including your own. Yes. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at the weekly discussion topics. We're going to look at the most recent 3. All right. And just FYI, what we're probably going to be looking at here is there's only going to be 2 more weeks worth of weekly discussion topics. We'll reserve the last week of the semester to allow you to play catch up on any of the ones that you have not responded to yet. Okay, so there will only be 14 total. All right. So we're going to start by looking at week 10. Okay, and then we'll go through it really quickly. In case you haven't responded to these yet, you'll know what direction you want to go in. Okay, so week 10, a Halloween trick for you. So here is the topic. Since Halloween is this week, I've decided to switch things up a little bit when it comes to the discussion topic. Since Halloween is the season of good scares, I thought I'd share with you something I discovered last summer that does the trick for me to scare me out of my socks. Quite by accident, I discovered an entire YouTube community dedicated to people who craft story videos. But the only video content used other than title cards explaining the action is excerpts of warnings from the emergency alert system. This technology is quite intense, but these YouTubers are using voice simulator software along with audio tools to create effectively realistic sounding and occasionally creepy EAS messages warning about everything from natural disasters to bombings to supernatural phenomena. To me, at least, what makes them more frightening is that, especially the weather ones, these could plausibly occur, and be real messages sent out to real populations to prepare them for incoming disasters, including at times certain death. For the discussion this week, I have a selection of 5 videos from YouTube from this EAS community. Some are short, some are long. Some of them are man-made disasters. One of them is a hypothetical historical warning. At least one has no possible recourse for those hearing the warning other than to prepare for the inevitable. Choose one, only one, of the video links below, watch the video, and give an honest reaction to it as your response to this discussion question. The catch is you won't know which scenario you are watching until you click on the link and start playing. Be aware the longest one is 40 minutes, so you need to set aside a little bit of time to complete this assignment if you choose that one. Some things to consider for your response would include how the video made you feel, what your reaction would be if you heard this come over your TV or radio, whether you feel the scenario is realistic or not, and just in general the visceral reaction it creates. In addition to your reaction, argue for whether you feel the authorities in your scenario took the correct actions in alerting the public or their recommendations to keep safe. What would you advise differently versus what is advised in the scenarios? Okay, so I'm not going to really go through what's been responded to yet because that would actually be spoilers because a lot of people are giving recaps of what happens in the scenarios that they chose, okay? What I will tell you, though, is if you have not done this one yet, scenario number 5 does not work. There is apparently a copyright strike on this particular video, so it's been blocked by a copyright holder, okay? I can tell you what that one was. It was a TV broadcast of a nuclear attack taking place in 1984. It's supposed to be from a TV station in Baltimore, okay? But the other 4 are still up and active, so you can choose one of them to watch and listen to, and you can post your reaction to it. Okay, moving on. We're going to go to week 11. Topic of this one was election meddling. And here's the way the topic goes. Today, November 2nd, we stand on the precipice of one of the most important dates in our nation's history, Election Day. To commemorate this heavily momentous event, let's take a look at a slightly less serious election involving cereal. One of the odder news stories for this year came out of South Korea, where the Kellogg's company released a new cereal 16 years in the making, a variety of Chex with green onion flavor. This stemmed from an online election in 2004 for a new mascot for Chex, a choice between Checky flavored chocolate and Chaka flavored green onion. However, because the election was conducted online, the voting was invaded by internet trolls who took over the vote, inflating the numbers to give Chaka a commanding lead. Kellogg's, in order to preserve their planned flavor, invalidated a number of votes and unilaterally declared Checky the winner. Over the next 16 years, the troll-triggered election wound up leading to a subculture of fan art depicting Checky as an authoritarian dictator who had rigged the election, and Chaka as a freedom fighter unjustly kept out of power. Part of this effort involved campaigns asking Kellogg's to honor the real election results and release the green onion Chex. This year, 16 years after the original election, the green onion Chex was released to the public. This is among a number of recent online votes that have been beset by widespread trolling, ranging from the election that gave the world Bodie McBoatface to another cereal election in Japan where trolls demanded a wasabi-flavored cereal over a chocolate one. Some of these trolls go dark. Mountain Dew's election for a name for a green apple-flavored soda was canceled after trolls pushed the name Hitler Did Nothing Wrong to the lead. But most times it results in silliness. However, this gives one pause when thinking about how easy it was to corrupt the election process in these situations. For your discussion this week, give your reaction to this idea and to other trolled online elections. How much of the trolling is done in good humor and how much is done out of malice or spite? In your opinion, what kind of precautions can companies take to prevent online polls like these from getting hijacked by trolls? What implications do trolling campaigns like this have for serious politics or actual consequential voting? So we have 4 sources on this one. Very first one is a YouTube video, Food Theory, the Truth of the World's Weirdest Cereal. Food Theory is a new channel that was just established this year by MatPat. You may know him as the founder of Game Theory and Film Theory. They now have a third channel that is devoted to nothing but food and does theory videos about food-related topics. Okay, this was the one that they released just before Election Day. It's actually the weekend prior. Second source is from the Korea Times, Democracy, Cereal, and Colonization. Okay, that one's specifically going into the Korean viewpoint on the Checky versus Chaka situation. PC Mag, Bodie McBoatface, and 9 other times trolls hijacked online polls. That's one of the ones that's listed in that list. Another one that's listed is the Mountain Dew one. What they do mention Hitler Did Nothing Wrong as being the leading name. What they don't mention is that there were a number of other distasteful name suggestions. Many of them were they were inspired by the fact that the soda was supposed to taste like Granny Smith apples. So a lot of people decided to enter in variants on the name Gushing Granny. Okay. And then there's another one that I mentioned in the 4th article here from Rare. Remember when Pitbull went to this Walmart in Kodiak, Alaska? That was one where Walmart and Pitbull announced a licensing and endorsement deal. And the way they announced it was by having fans go to Facebook, and the Walmart that received the most likes in a given amount of time, Pitbull would go to greet fans and perform a concert at that particular Walmart. Well, the winning Walmart was pushed by trolls. Is the Walmart in Kodiak, Alaska, which is the smallest community that Walmart serves. Kodiak, Alaska is a small town of about 6,000 people. But true to his word, Pitbull did actually go to Kodiak, and he did perform his show there. Okay. So quite a few people have responded to this already. There's still a few people that need to get their responses in. Okay. Then we have one more that just posted yesterday. So we're going to take a look at that. It's going to be week 12's topic. Subject for this is a fitting memorial to Alex Trebek. Okay. Give me a second here. I'm going to fix this. So I'm going to share it differently here. All right. So for this week's discussion topic, Over the past weekend, it was reported that Alex Trebek, longtime television game show host best known for his 37 years as the host of Jeopardy, had passed away after a years-long battle with pancreatic cancer at the age of 80. Trebek was memorialized as a television icon, beloved by the world, around the world, but especially in the U.S. and his home country of Canada. Tributes have been pouring out in the days since his passing, many from celebrities and political figures, but also from past Jeopardy contestants sharing their memories of the time on their show interacting with Trebek. Because of the show's shooting schedule, there are still episodes left to air featuring Trebek as the host. It was announced by the show's executive producer in a special message preceding Monday's airing that enough episodes were banked to allow the show to continue until Trebek's final taped appearance airs on Christmas Day. In addition, one last appearance of Trebek hosting Jeopardy will arrive next year, as he has a cameo in the upcoming Ryan Reynolds film Free Guy. There has been some concern expressed in regards to how the show will memorialize Trebek. The host himself had noted he wanted control over how he left the show and wanted to record a special farewell message for his final episode. It's not known whether the message was recorded before his death. Speculation had already begun over who should replace Trebek as the host of Jeopardy, or if it is even possible to replace him. Two of the more prominent names that have circulated as possible new hosts are 73-time champion Ken Jennings, recently crowned the greatest Jeopardy champion of all time, who works as a producer on the show, and ABC News host George Stephanopoulos. Trebek himself jokingly recommended in interviews that his successor should be 98-year-old actress Betty White. For your discussion this week, talk over the situation now faced by both fans of Jeopardy and the producers of the show. How do they fill the void left by Trebek's death? If you were in the producer's shoes, who would you choose as the new host, either among the named candidates, Jennings, Stephanopoulos, White, or anyone else? Argue your case for or against any host candidate either presented in the media or any presented by your fellow students. Okay? So, the sources I have for this one. First one's from the New York Times is the announcement that Alex Trebek, longtime host of Jeopardy, dies at 80. Next one's from The Atlantic, how Alex Trebek made a mundane game show brilliant. Try to give you an idea of his impact. Daily Beast, Alex Trebek, remembered by Jeopardy champs. He loved being in on the joke. We have Yahoo Life. This is who Alex Trebek wanted to replace him as the next Jeopardy host. This is referring to the Betty White cracks. Best Life, this is what Alex Trebek wanted for his last Jeopardy episode. Then we have the New York Post. Who will replace Alex Trebek as Jeopardy host? Meet the top candidates. This does mention Ken Jennings, Betty White, and George Stephanopoulos. It also mentions two others. Now, their names are slipping my mind right now, but I know one of them is a political analyst for CNN, and the other one is an announcer for the Los Angeles Kings hockey team. Okay, the hockey announcer is also the youngest of the candidates. He's only 31. The others are at least in their 40s. Okay. The last source I have here is a cold open that aired on Monday with the episode of Jeopardy that aired on Monday. This actually preceded the game itself. So this was their acknowledgement of Alex Trebek's passing. The guy you see in this video, I'm going to play it for you. He's the executive producer of the show.
Mike Richards, the executive producer of Jeopardy. Over the weekend, we lost our beloved host, Alex Trebek. This is an enormous loss for our staff and crew, for his family, and for his millions of fans. He loved this show and everything it stood for. In fact, he taped his final episodes less than 2 weeks ago. He will forever be an inspiration for his constant desire to learn, his kindness, and for his love of his family. We will air his final 35 episodes as they were shot. That's what he wanted. On behalf of everyone here at Jeopardy, thank you for everything, Alex. This is Jeopardy.
All right, so they're kind of broken up about that whole situation. As you can understand, it's pretty shocking. All right, so those are the 3 questions that have been most recently posted. Just so you have an idea, that's the type of stuff that you can respond to. Let's see. Yeah, we'll do one more round of questions here. So how do you want us, okay, 1 second. How do you want us to turn in our essay with the other sources and we only evaluate our own sources? Okay, as I mentioned before, you have to evaluate all the sources that your team supplies, okay? So that means you actually have to summarize and you have to evaluate them for your own purposes, okay? The way you need to turn it in is just as a standard annotated bibliography. I posted the sample to eCampus. The only difference between the sample and the annotated bibliography that you're going to turn in is that I want you to, at the top of the front page, put your research question. That is not the topic that your team was working with, but the specific research question that you are working with for your proposal essay. That's what you're going to be evaluating the sources against to determine whether they're useful or not. I'm not going to know if it's your sources. Okay, that's the whole point here. Okay, I don't need to know who supplied which sources. The only thing I need to see is you're able to evaluate them and you're able to summarize them. The actual due date on this essay, or on the annotated bibliography, is tomorrow. The link went live today. So if you have it done already, you can turn it in.
So you're supposed to work on that by yourself, or do you get other group?
The bibliography that you're turning in has to be written by you. The only thing that the group is doing is you guys are collecting the sources, okay?
Okay.
But you have to do your own evaluations, your own summaries of them, and no, you don't provide the names of who provided which sources. Like I said before, the point is not to know who supplied what. The point of it is that you can just go with a general list of sources and evaluate them.
Okay. And when you say evaluate them for your own purposes, you mean
for purposes,
what you got to say?
Yeah, how you're going to use them for your proposal essay.
Oh, okay.
Whether they're useful or not. Saddam, yes, you just write one. I would recommend one paragraph for the source. One paragraph per source. Include a brief summary and your evaluation of whether you can use that source or not. Okay. Right. I also really quick here, I want to make you guys aware of the upcoming schedule for both the lectures and the collaborate sessions. We will continue to have lectures through the remainder of the semester. We've got 3 weeks worth of lectures to go. Okay. There will be another collaborate session next week. Okay. There will not be a collaborate session the following week, which is Thanksgiving week. Okay, partly because you guys would be scheduled to do it on Thanksgiving Day, and I don't want to yank you guys away from that, and also partly because I'm going to be traveling anyway. So we're not going to have a collaborate session on Thanksgiving week. The last collaborate session will be the last week of the semester, which is week of November 30th, the week after Thanksgiving. Okay. One other thing to note here: Thanksgiving week is also the first week of work for the proposal essays. So make sure that you have got something to contribute to a workshop in a couple weeks. Okay. And then the following week will be the proofing and editing, and it's due on the 4th of December, which is the end of that week. Okay? Redoing a time on MindTap, I'm really not sure. I'd have to look into that for you. I don't know that you can redo it or not. Let's see if it's set up so that you can redo them if you need to.
You said that the proposal argument was a group thing, right? Or like a solo thing?
The proposal is solo. The only thing that's a group project here is that anti-bibliography. And again, the only thing the group is doing is contributing all the sources.
Okay.
Okay, as far as the MindTap stuff goes, they do not give me any option as in terms of multiple attempts. So unfortunately, I think once you've done it once, I think that might be it. So I do apologize. Let's see. The exact due date of the proposal is December 4th.
My last question would be when you evaluate the credibility of the sources, like in order to check the credibility, are you supposed to like how are you supposed to check the credibility for sources?
You're not really checking the reliability as much as you're checking to see if they are useful for your own purposes. If you can use them as part of your proposal. Okay? That's the big thing we're looking for.
Okay.
Now, you certainly should check for credibility on them, but the main thing I'm looking for is usefulness. Okay?
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right, Vanessa, I see you there. Go ahead.
We had originally 4 members in our team, but yesterday he just left our group chat and he hasn't really been responding to us. So is it okay if we do have like a group of 3?
Yeah, that's fine. 3 was the minimum number I wanted for groups anyway. So they'll give you 6 sources to work with, so you should be okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, getting close to the end here. If anybody has any further questions about the lecture or about the exam, anti-bib or anything like that, go ahead and send it to me through email or post it to Questions Professor. And we'll have another lecture coming up next Monday. We'll have another one of these collaborative sessions on Thursday. And I will see you guys then. Thank you for coming, and I'll see you guys next week.
Thank you, Professor.